Welcome to Live Action Star Wars. My name is James, and today I'm back again to do another mini episode. This time I'm going to be reviewing the board game Star Wars Outer Rim. It's published by Fantasy Flight Games a couple of years ago in 2019, designed by Corey Konezka, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and Tony Fanchi. It's for 1 to 4 players. It takes about 2.5, 3 hours to play. Probably more like 3 on your first couple of goes through, and then you can get it down to about 2 after a little while. Gameplay itself, it's quite asymmetrical. So everyone is basically playing their own type of game. You're competitive, but it's not really aggressively so. So the goal of the game is to achieve the most notoriety, the most fame, to become the most famous player in the Outer Rim. And you do that not necessarily by attacking each other, but through a number of different methods that I'll go into in a little bit. The board itself, as I can bring up here and show you, it's modular. So it's sort of a semicircle rim-shaped board that is, as I say, it's modular. That's in, I think, 6 different pieces. So it has a specific layout for it for your first game or two, which actually is all I've played with. But you can shift it around, shuffle them up, and put the board layout in any way you see fit, which does greatly change the actual flow of the game and how the game would be played. As I said, there's many different ways that you can achieve victory in this game. You can achieve fame through exploring the Outer Rim, picking up and delivering cargo, whether it be legal or illegal, or passengers. People might want to go places. You can hunt bounties. You can accept multiple stage jobs that take the form of a card that will have instructions, normally all on one planet, but it depends on the job. Each job is slightly different. And then you can also achieve personal quests. Each character that you play has a personal quest that will award a number of fame when you complete it. And then each named ship, when you buy a new upgraded starship, you don't buy the Millennium Falcon, for instance. You buy a YT 1300 Corellian freighter. And then once you've completed that ship's goal, you'll flip the card over and you have the Millennium Falcon. It's a little bit stronger, a little bit better, more abilities. And again, you get more fame for doing that sort of thing. The game is played over a number of rounds, not a specific number. It's just the first player to, I think it's 10 fame. And each round is made up of 3 steps for a player's turn. I've got the little handy little reference card here that comes with the game that is, I find, quite essential to remember what you're doing and to keep the game flowing. Most games these days have a reference card of some sort, and some of they vary in sort of how much you need them or how helpful they are. This one, because there are many possible steps that you can take, I find it invaluable to have one of these for each player. And then on the back of the reference card, you've got ways to gain fame. So yeah, personal goals, ship goals, bounties, jobs, deliver illegal cargo, win a combat against patrols, and buy cards from the market deck. And then it's also got a quick handy reference for skill tests. So skill tests are part of jobs, part of combat. That's the dice rolling, essentially. But on a player's turn, there are the 3 steps. There's the planning phase, which you choose one of 3 different possible options there. The action step, which is perform any or all of 3 different things. And then the encounter step, where you have to choose one of the 3 to either fight a patrol if you have a negative reputation with a particular faction, resolve an encounter card either from the planet that you're at or from a Navi point if you're sort of floating in space somewhere, or you resolve a contact token. If you're on a planet, each planet has 2 contact tokens, and that's where you meet new people, new characters that you can pick up as either crew or as bounties. If you're hunting a particular person, you first need to find them. Why are they hiding? It's that's the basics of the game. And then one player does their turn, they do all their steps, and then it's on to the next person. During the action step, which is where you'll spend most of your time, the options are for delivering cargo or bounties if you're on the particular planet that the deliveries or the bounty needs to go to. There's market action, so there is the hand of market. The market decks are in the middle of the board for everyone to look at, and if you're on a planet, you can buy, as long as you can afford it, any of the items on the top of those decks. And you can also cycle through the top card of one. And then you can also trade cards with another player in your space. So if you, I say it's a competitive game, but if you're playing with 3 or 4 people, one person might be way out ahead, and it might be beneficial for you to play with the third person to try and get a leg up so that you two possibly can catch up. The game also does, in the rulebook, encourage wheeling and dealing. So you can only trade cards if you're in the same space as a player, but you can trade money at any point. You can Venmo someone 10,000 credits if they ask you nicely, and in return for that, they can promise to give you things. They can promise to give you a particular card when you're next in their space. You can promise to help them out with a skill check if they need it. If you have a particular skill that they might be lacking, you can offer your aid. But the key with this is that none of those contracts are binding. You can lie. You're in the Outer Rim. You're smugglers. You're scoundrels. You're Han Solo types in this game. So sure, you can promise to help someone out with a skill check, but then when it comes down to it, you can just turn around and say, "Nah, I'm good. I got what I wanted. Thanks. Good luck." That element of the game, I don't think comes up enough. I think people don't, not when I've played it anyway, tend to do that. But there is an expansion coming later in this, I believe, next month actually, that leans in. It seems like they've added new components, new elements to the game that really lean heavily on the sort of the trading and the trying to basically make people stab each other in the back, but in a fun way, or call on a debt. I think it's debt tokens and what they're introducing in the new expansion. Should be exciting to hear. I really enjoy this game. There is an element of luck when it comes to skill tests and dice rolling, and that's not something I tend to particularly enjoy with most board games. Any board game that you play growing up as a kid, it's always roll a dice and move, and it's always just the luck of the dice. I've been playing sort of newer. I mean, it's hard to describe, but I say like adult board games, but board games are for everyone. There are good board games for everyone, but I'm talking you're not your Monopolies, your Cluedos, Risky is sort of right on the cusp of a sort of high quality board game and what we get back in the day. I've been playing board games for quite a while now, and yeah, dice rolling just doesn't tend to do it for me. But here, having an element of luck works, I think, where you're playing as Han Solo or Boba Fett or IG-88 or any of the Lando, any of these characters, saying, where Han has the famous line of "I call it luck," and then Obi-Wan rebuts it with not believing in luck. But I think there is something to that scoundrels and the luck of the dice. It works quite nicely, I think. The dice in this game are gold. They do slightly reminisce Han's dice that he has hanging from the Falcon, without ever calling full attention to it. I'll pull up a little video here. I shot this last week when I was playing it, and it just gives you an overview of the board. So here we've got the character tokens, the board itself around the outside there. So it's a very unique design. I've not seen a game board like that. And then the little yellow dots along the paths are your route, so you'll travel there. And then here, this is the market deck. So each one of those represents a different thing. They might be jobs, bounties, exotic items, cargo, ships, or upgrades, gear and upgrades. It's It's really fun. So there is, as I say, it's an asymmetrical game. So you're essentially playing your own game, and your opponents are playing their own game. And there is a lack of player interaction that could be off-putting, depending on who you're playing with, though, and the style of game that each person wants to play. So the game that we played there that I did a little bit of video for was, it was me and my girlfriend, and we didn't actually interact all that much. We were pretty much on opposite sides of the outer rim for most, but we crisscrossed a few times, but we didn't need to get into any combat. So it was more like we were just sort of rooting for each other. But I don't know. It depends on if you're sitting around a table and when someone's not in their turn, they're on their phone or they're not engaged with what's going on, then sure, that could be a problem. But if playing a board game for you is a time that you enjoy spending with friends and family and stuff like that, then yeah, it doesn't matter if it's your turn or not. You're watching what other people are doing and you're just trying to strategize. And if they're revealing a character token for a bounty that you're looking for, it's beneficial for you to know where that is. So I feel like the lack of player interaction is very much user dependent. It depends on the team of people that you decide to play this game with, and you'll have a good idea of who's going to be involved and who's not. Um, some of the mechanics in this game might never come into play. There is a lot of stuff in this box. There is a lot of decks of cards. There is a lot of tokens. I got it out just to get this card, and it took me a couple of minutes to find the right baggie that it's in. There is tons of elements to this game as to components. This here, the picture that I've brought up now, is basics of the game sort of laid out before we chose our characters at the start of the game. So around the outside there, you see the game board. I've put all of the components, the tokens and stuff that we might need into some little ramekins. Then you got the market deck, and then our player boards with our ships next to them. Luigi Johnny just asked, here is, how long does the game take start to finish? Once you start playing, I said it at the top, I don't think you were here yet, it's probably 2 to 3 hours is what I would recommend. First couple of games are going to be longer as you're learning the rules as you go. And otherwise, you can get it down to about a 2-hour game normally. It's a game that you will start out and you will feel like you're making no progress whatsoever for a long time, and then you'll go on a run. You'll hit a combo of hitting multiple jobs one after the other, and you might go from only having achieved like 1 or 2 fame up to about 8 in the space of a couple of turns. It's that sort of game as you're building and building and building. But it's rewarding when you do. It does make it feel like every point of fame is an achievement. You've earned it. It's not just given out willy-nilly. But as I said, some of the mechanics in the game might never come into a play depending on the game. So in that one, we didn't encounter any patrols. The patrols are from the Rebellion, the Empire, the Hutts, and criminal syndicates combined. Basically, it's just a 4th token, and they will be patrolling the outer rim. And depending on your standing with them, so you can't see it particularly well, but in the bottom corner of the player boards on the right hand side there's 4 trackers, and it's designed like the HUD or the controls, the dashboard essentially of the spaceship, and you move the bits up and down depending on your standing with each faction. And if you have negative standing with a particular faction, they will attack you, or you'll have to fight them if you encounter that patrol. But as I said, if you're playing it smart, you might be able to avoid them, whether you're in good favor with them or not. But that changes game to game in the way that it plays out, the way that you decide to play the game. There's no death or elimination, though. So players are never eliminated if you do run afoul of a patrol or you fail a job a few times and you end up losing all of your hit points on either your ship or your player itself, the character itself. There's an option for on your planning stage that if you are defeated, you have to recover all damage. You can do that at any stage if you choose to. it's essentially you miss a portion of your turn. You miss a turn if you run out of hit points, if you die. But it's nice because that way players aren't eliminated. No one's sat at a table while two other people are playing for the next 2 hours without anything to do. The jobs, I mentioned the jobs as one of the things and one of the ways that you can achieve fame. They are very thematic. They're drawn from the films, books, comics, and I was quite pleasantly surprised to see from some of the FFG RPG supplements. So Fantasy Flight did 3 combined role-playing game series. There was one set in the Outer Rim, one set for it was the Age of Rebellion, and then Force and Destiny. And I believe it's just from the Outer Rim book, Edge of the Empire, I think it was called. There's a few jobs from that. There was like a diamond heist on Yavin things, and one of the jobs it's a summary of that entire adventure supplement, but on one card that you can do as a job in this game to achieve some fame. Pretty cool. It's a nice little thematic way. And the artwork on all of the cards, mostly these player cards, is fantastic. I mentioned it on my review of Jabba's Palace, but the artists the FFG hire to do these art is really good. So these two in particular stand out to me because you've got Harrison Ford and Billy D. Williams, but aged down a little bit, and in the costumes that the characters were wearing in the Solo movie. So it's a cool, like, the game is timeless. It's not set in any one particular time, but it feels like it slots in nicely in that between trilogies, that sort of just after Solo, before A New Hope, that sort of time frame. If you needed that theming, it works very, very well. I mentioned a lot of components. There is a lot of setup and teardown in this game. So Lucha Johnny asked, how long does the game take start to finish? That is probably 2 to 3 hours. I would add another half an hour on there for setup and teardown combined. Once you got it down, there's plenty of baggies in the box, so you'll be able to sort of divide everything out. You could rip out the crappy cardboard insert that is in the box and just chuck it all in. I've got mine quite neat and tidy because it for me makes the setup and teardown a lot quicker. But yeah, that does eat into this game quite a lot because, as you can see, there is a lot of components and things going on that board. It makes it look way more complicated than it is. The gameplay itself is really quite simple. I think after you can teach it, it's a teachable game. I think there are so many games that are, when you learn it, when you know how you're playing it, it's fine and you can have a really good time. But trying to teach that game is difficult. There is a skill to teaching a board game, I think. This is a game that I can teach quite quickly. I think within 10 minutes, I can have most people up and running. And then at the end of one round, so they may watch 1 or 2 people play, and then they'll play their turn. And I think they're going to feel confident enough to be able to keep playing. It's also where it is competitive, but everyone's playing their own sort of game. There's no like element of like, oh, I've got a card that I need to hide from someone that I can't show them. If they're trying to do something, they can sort of say, right, okay, I want to do this and this and this. How would that work? Can I do that? And everyone around the table can help out a little bit. So it's an intimidating board to look at. I remember when I was playing and I posted something on our social feed, I think Ralph chimed in and said, wow, that looks like intimidating. And to look at, there is a lot to it, but to actually play, it's really quite a simple game. If you've played any sort of board game in the last 10 years, then you're going to be able to pick this up quite easily, I'd say. If you're familiar with a game like Gloomhaven, there's a lot more to that, or any of those sorts of big games. The basics, yeah, can be taught quickly, and within a round or two, I think most people would have it down. I really recommend this game. I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but it scratches a particular itch. There's FFG Fantasy Flight Games, the publishers. They have the Star Wars license. They've had it for quite a few years now, and they've done a really good job of hitting all the bases. Depending on what part of Star Wars you enjoy, they've probably got a game for that particular thing. You've got Star Wars Rebellion, which is big intergalactic cat and mouse chase between the Empire, but a lot more like there's a Lord of the Rings game, War of the Ring, or like a more intense version of Risk, that sort of element of game. Or then you've got the X-Wing game, which is miniature combat. You've got Legion, which is the sort of more like Warhammer 40k trooper sort of hobby game. And then a bunch of card games like Jabba's Palace, which they vary in levels of complexity. This one sits in nicely in the middle. It's not the most simple game, but it's also not the most complex, and it's all in one box. You're not buying a new expansion for it every month. I did mention there is a big box expansion coming out for it that is probably about the same price as the base game itself, but that's adding twice as much content as already in here, but it's absolutely not a necessary purchase. I'm going to, because I've been playing this one for a few years now and would like some new content for it, but you don't need to worry about buying two big games when you're purchasing this. You could just pick this up and have a really good time with it for a number of years, I think. It's a unique, it's that I showed the board, and I've not seen anything like that before. The gameplay itself is very unique. The only thing that people I've seen comparing it to, there was a Firefly game a few years ago that apparently was sort of similar. I've not played it myself, I can't speak to it, but I could see thematically how that would slot in a similar sort of vein as this. It scratches that smuggler scoundrel, doing jobs, scraping by, becoming notorious, doing the Kessel run, that sort of itch. I bought this game at the start of the first lockdown in this country, at the beginning of the pandemic, because I was going to be by myself most of the time, and I wanted something that I could play by myself. I looked up what board games were really good solo, or what just had, because most games these days have a solo mode of their own. And some of them are good, some of them are bad. I picked this one up because I'd heard good things, and I had a really good time. The setup feels like a lot when you're just playing for yourself, but when you're in the middle of a lockdown and you can't really go anywhere or do anything, then whatever, you set it up and you come back to it. Maybe you play a couple of rounds and then you do something else and you come back to it, and you've just got it on the table for a whole day or something. It was good fun. It definitely ticked away some days for me when it was nothing else going on. I can't imagine Inside, Bo Burnham's Inside would be very interesting if he's just playing a board game though. It's great. I've played it since then with 2 and once with 3. It played really well with 3. It played well with 2. The solo mode works really well. After you've done it a few times though, the particular deck that is in the box, that is essentially another player AI to you are still racing to get the most fame. That gets a little bit stale because you're used to the cards that are going to come out of that and the way that game is going to play. On the other hand, there is fan-made supplements. There's fan-made rules for solo mode. There's an expanded solo mode, and there is also a story campaign mode. I'm not sure the player count on that, but on boardgamegeek.com, BGG, a big board game website, you go into this game and then you look down through the forums, and people have got files, and they look professional as all hell. So yeah, if that's something, if you wanted a campaign, if you enjoyed the game and you wanted to do it over a course of a number of different games, then that would be a way to do it. It'd be really fun. I'd quite like to check that out at some point. And as I said, the expansion is available in June. It's twice as much content, more characters, more ships, more cards for the stores, new mechanics, and a few different optional new ways to play the game as well. So I've got it pre-ordered. I will play it a few times, and then I will, if it's worth doing a full video on, I'll do a full video. If not, I'll just maybe mention it on a Data Link episode or something in the future. Yeah, Inside was amazing. I'd watch a deleted scene of him playing a Star Wars board game by himself, but I don't think it makes for a very good song. I don't know. Maybe he could do it. I trust Bo Burnham enough to do that. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And if you have any questions about this board game, please send them over to our socials at Live Action SW everywhere. You can see it along the bottom here. So it's Twitter, Instagram, email, maybe. I don't know. We've got the website, liveactionstarwars.com. Leave your reviews. Check us out. This is just the first of 4 episodes that we got this week. So stay tuned and make sure that you are following everything that we're doing, because on Wednesday we've got a data link episode with Orthodox Star Wars Day, and we're going to be opening a couple of gifts that have been very nicely sent to us by a very, very kind listener. And then on Friday we've got the first episode of Obi-Wan, and then on Saturday we've got the second episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it's going to be a tiring week. It's going to be a good one. For everyone that's going to Celebration, I'm insanely jealous. I wish I could be there. Hopefully next time I will be. But if you're not, stay tuned to us. We'll let you know what's going on, and you'll be able to follow along with everything. You can find my personal writing. I did a Star Wars piece recently, and I'm going to have another one out at the beginning of June. It's at tinyletter.com/James Hewlett. And yeah, unless there is nothing else from you guys, I will see you on Wednesday.